Hello, and welcome again to another exciting episode of Community in Crisis. I'm Wayne Johnson, attorney who practices in Oakland, California, here with my co-host, Dr. Stephen Nur Ahmed. Today's guest is Virgil Hunter, and he's really an amazing person. He has a really exciting career. He's done a lot of things. Virgil, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first and foremost, I'm an Oakland native, uh, born in Berkeley, California. The roots of my family are from Texas, and they migrated out here to California. So I'm proud to say that I'm a Northern Californian Oakland native, uh, born and bred here, so to speak. Uh, Elementary, junior high, and high school, and still here.
So you went to McClymonds High School,
I went to McClymonds High School.
and you played a lot of sports there.
I did. Played a lot of sports, but I have to say that when I got to McClymonds, basketball was the primary focus in baseball at the time. Although I didn't play for the school team, I was playing more or less the semi-pro teams at that time.
Okay, that's good. And tell us a little bit about what you did professionally after you left high school.
Well, I had this urge and desire to see different places. I had an opportunity to play basketball away from the Bay Area, which stimulated my desire to see different places in the world and things like that. So I started here more or less on the West Coast. Lived in Los Angeles for a period of time doing aerospace work, machinist work. Uh, Lived up in Oregon for a period of time, not that long, and just in general during those times of age, you would say 20 to 24, having fun, just finding my way.
Okay. Now you're a boxing trainer, manager, promoter. Is that accurate?
Well, I'm not a promoter.
How would you describe yourself?
Well, I do manage fighters and I do train fighters, so you can say I'm both there. At the time I'm managing two promising, aspiring young Olympians for the 2016 team, and then I train some of the best fighters in the world.
Okay, tell us about some of those best fighters. Okay? So for the audience.
Yes, I train Andre Ward, the super middleweight king, number 2 pound for pound in the world. I train Andre Berto, more welterweight champion. I train Amir Khan, 2-time champion. I train Chad Dawson, actually a guy that we just got. I train Alfredo Angulo, who's getting ready to fight March 8th on pay-per-view against Canelo Alvarez. It's going to be a big, big event. Brandon Gonzalez, who's ranked number 2 now in the world. Kareem Mayfield, who's ranked number 2, number 3 in the world in his weight division. Stan Martinuk, a young Russian kid, and also Levin Gratrovich, who is also a young Russian kid who is also undefeated.
How many hours do boxers generally have to put in to be great?
Well, I think the lifestyle is just as important as the hours. And, there's the saying that the more hours you put in, the better you're going to get. So it's definitely in this sport a total dedication to the sport. And on average, if you have aspirations of being great, I would say you should put at least 4 hours a day into your craft.
At least minimum.
At least minimum.
Okay.
Virgil,
Yes.
why is it that we have fewer young men from the community, and we can just keep it to Oakland, maybe LA, going into this sport of boxing? What is happening? Where are the heavyweights? What's going on there?
Well, that's a good question. At this moment now, the Eastern Bloc countries are pretty dominant in the heavyweight division. I think with the payrolls of the NFL and the NBA going up now, and even track and field. I mean, I think in boxing, there's only 10% of the fighters that make the real big money. So it's a tough political sport to get into. You have to be connected from the very beginning. It's a lonely sport, and it's a sport that you don't play. You know, you play football, you play baseball, you play basketball, but you don't play boxing. So it's a sport. It has to be a testament to the young man's desire and dedication, and can he be great being alone most of the time?
To the best of your knowledge, are scholarships available coming out of high school for boxing, or is it limited to football and baseball and track?
No, but at one time, Northern Michigan offered a scholarship program, which I thought was a wonderful program that paid the young men a nice stipend, monthly stipend, up in Northern Michigan to go to college, and a lot of them did and took advantage of it. But the funding has gotten so low now from the IOC and USA Boxing that the program had to be terminated, so to speak. So that left a lot of people in limbo right there. But no, it's not a setup like it is in football and basketball. But there are colleges in the Santa Clara League, the Reno League. I can't say the name of the league at this time that offer boxing as a program, and they do offer monies for you to participate in collegiate boxing. I think Notre Dame, West Point, a lot of schools back east, as long as Santa Clara and some of the schools out here on the West Coast. So there is a collegiate boxing program that gives you the scholarship and
That
opportunity
could
to
put
get
one
in.
on track for the Olympic
Well, yes, but you have
activity.
to in the collegiate area. You can only have a certain amount of fights. You can't come in there as a world class amateur
I see.
with 100 fights and fight a guy who's going to college who might just have started
I see.
going to college. So they have their rules and regulations. But of course, if they really expand their talents in college and take it out of college and take it into the amateur field and the professional field, yeah, the Olympics is a definite goal that can be reached.
Let me ask you this: who were some of your role models growing up?
Well, we all start, I think, with our families. I mean, me coming up in the 50s and the 60s, during that time, the opportunity to expand and to see more was not as opportunistic today as it is for some of the young kids. So I have to start with my grandfather, uh, my father, uh, men at the church, men at the parks and recreations who were taking their time to coach us and to be there with us and be mentors to us. And they were also the men that were telling you about the world that was beyond. So anything that I learned about a great man that was beyond my arena, it was imparted to me by these men. So I would have to say my role models were basically community men that cared about kids and wanted to see them go into a direction that was going to make them successful.
Where are those men now?
A lot of them have passed on. Matter of fact, me being I don't want to disclose my age, but I've been around some. But
Well, let me ask you this: why do we have the same quantity and quality of men being role models for young guys, young ladies now that we had, and I'll just say at our time?
mhm. Well, you know what? Today, a coach coaching AAU basketball or even baseball, they can get paid pretty big money. There are a lot of coaches that have shoe contracts now from the big shoe companies that have these uh, age group teams that they're so important for the colleges. It's almost like a farm system. So these guys can make quite a bit of money by having the right players and funneling these players to different schools and everything. So I'm sure the role models are out there. I think it's a little bit more incentive now with the money involved now because in my day it was strictly volunteer. It wasn't a paying job. It was the love of the sport
The
from the
passion.
coach and the passion, and also the desire to have young men under their watch that they could look forward to later on. I had one coach said that his biggest desire was to be able at one stage in his life to sit back and reflect and see all the success of the young men that came through his watch. That's what he aspired. That's all he wanted. And so I think those men were very important in my lifetime.
Without disclosing your age, How long have you been in boxing?
I've been around boxing all my life because of my uncles, and my father was all military champion. My grandfather, my father's father boxed, so it was just a given. I was around boxing all the time. As far as coaching boxing, it's going on. It's a little over 30 years now.
Okay. And what are some of the challenges you faced being in boxing as a manager or as a even amateur boxer yourself?
Well, the challenges present themselves every day, particularly when you're at the level you have the level of the fighters that I have. So the challenges present themselves every day. Personally, it's a sport that if you're going to stay relevant, you have to win. If you're going to stay important, you have to win. It's a sport that's open to criticism, good and bad, but it's also opened up to people who are really not that versed in the sport. In today's age, with today's technology, anybody can come along with a credential and a microphone and a cameraman and say I'm this guy and start from there. So that's pretty uh, prevalent in boxing as opposed to other sports. And all the other sports, the NFL, the NBA, you do have to have some experience. You do have to have credential. They have the right people in the right spots for the right job. In boxing, you can have a fan that can all of a sudden turn into a reporter. So it's a challenge all the time to stay afloat.
With the high tech phones and everything, anybody can record.
If a young man were to come to you, or a young lady were to come to you, and ask, this is my height, this is my size, I'm a good all around athlete. What should I put most of my time into? If a young man, let's say, is 5'9", but he's all around,
Mm-hmm.
but he wants to get that scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
where should he put his energy to maximize the likelihood that he'll get that scholarship out of high school and maybe even have an opportunity to do professional, uh, play professional?
Well, I do think that height and weight is a very important factor in the sport that you choose. I mean, it's interesting. I was just reading an article yesterday on two twins from the Middle East that are playing for New Mexico State, and one of them is 7'6", and the other one is 7'3". Well, they didn't grow up playing basketball, but the fact that they're 7'6" and 7'3", you have people say, well, we can teach them how to play basketball, because before them you had Elijah Wan and you had some Manubo, you had some of the other people who came along that were soccer players and everything, but because they had NBA height, uh, they were taught basketball, and these young men are going through that right now. Now, you're not going to go and find a 5'9" guy getting a free scholarship and having a coach say, we're going to teach you to play basketball. It's just not going to happen.
But do we have 5'9" shortstops and 5'9"
We have
second
5'9"
basemen,
shortstops.
5'9"
We have
catchers?
5'9". Well, that's kind of small, but they're there. They're there. But we do have 5'9" Major League Baseball players, sprinters. Some of the greatest sprinters falling at 5'9", 5'10". Zone swimmers. Although now it seems like Phelps is setting a new standard, but the 5'10" zone there for swimmers, runners. There are a lot of. I think if a person goes into sports, he really should identify the sport that really complements who he is physically, and that means height wise, that means weight wise, that means his athletic ability. There are a lot of 5'9" guys that can dunk a basketball. That doesn't spell NBA at all. Um, Boxing is a good sport to be in, but you don't recruit boxers. Boxers find you, so it's just something that's made up different in them. So I think a young man should definitely pay attention to who he is physically and not kid himself. And because at 5'9", we've all come up where a guy 5'9" was a good basketball player in junior high and high school. But at some point, it catches up to you. And the odds, in this article, they said the odds out of 1 out of 20 7-footers get looked at by the NBA. That's narrows it down. You got a great opportunity. Everybody else, it was 1 in 16,000. They got looked. So you can see the dramatic fall off as the height goes down, the percentage goes up. So it's something that should really be considered. I know if my son was 5'9", I wouldn't be buying him any Jordans to try to play in the NBA. I would try to get him to pay attention to some of the other guys that play baseball, some of the guys that, even football, there's room for running backs and things like that. So if he really wanted to be an athlete, to identify a sport that he has a great chance to excel at and not waste years and time trying to achieve a goal that's pretty unrealistic for him.
Let me ask you this, Virgil. Are there any challenges for you being a black or African American boxing manager?
Well, being African American in any sport is a challenge, and more so in boxing. I think when you go back into the 50s, there were no African American managers and very few African American trainers at the elite level. I mean, Joe Louis came along with Jack Blackburn. Um, that was an exception, but it's just started in the 70s when Emmanuel Stewart came along, and people in that class where the opportunities started presenting themselves. Because in the 50s and the 40s, and even in my early day, there were a lot of bitter African American coaches because they would start this young man out getting good, getting recognized, making championship material. But when the promoter and the managers come along with the money, they say, look, we're willing to give him this amount of money, but we are going to pick who trains him. And so now you're in a dilemma where this guy has spent 10 years of his life training him, but they want their guy training him. And that's going on right today where you have these great amateur coaches that have developed these kids. And when the kids move into the pros, the pros come along with this thing that, well, he's a great amateur coach, he's not a great professional coach. And a lot of kids end up leaving the coach you spent all their life with because the money says it's going to you, but it's not going to go to him. And a lot of the coaches, you got to take the money. So it's a tough situation.
I recall something like that happening with the Williams sisters that play in tennis. Their father was trying to coach them, and I believe they were trying to discourage him. You remember anything about that?
Well, I think to the best of my knowledge, they had a coach that moved them from Compton to Florida
Mm-hmm.
and was coaching them for a period of time. And this coach, I actually heard this coach say that he was unjustly canned uh, and that he was directly instrumental in the success of Venus Williams and Serena Williams. But the disagreement came, the father did not want to push them too soon into the professional ranks of tennis. He had a chance to observe how it could how it burned out the players. He wanted them to take their time and ease into the sport. So I think that was the conflict that happened there. I don't think it had anything to do with the coach's ability, but I think it had a lot to do with the coach's timetable. So I am familiar sort of with that story.
Okay.
Virgil, along with the training regimen, the weightlifting, the running, what would you say to a young person about eating and and not doing drugs or alcohol, but also the eating and the problem with GMOs and how to really prime that strength by eating the good food? How would you approach that kind of issue with a person training?
Well, we like to say if you buy a Ferrari, you're not going to put Jimbo gas in it. You're not going to put 87 octane into that, and you're not going to go to the cheapest gas station to save a few pennies and everything. And it's the same principle with an athlete. The better you eat, the better recovery you're going to have, the better performances you're going to have, concentration, focus, sleeping better at night, all these things. And of course, drugs speak for themselves. If you're altering your mind, if you're causing damage to your internal vitals and things like that, it's definitely going to jeopardize your athletic career. You can only get away with it for so long, and it's going to have a negative effect.
Tell us about some of your proudest moments as a boxing trainer.
Uh, starting, I guess we can go way back when the titles started coming. Of course, the gold medal. Um,
I mean,
being
Andre
a
Ward's
gold,
gold.
Andre winning gold medal, Andre winning the world championship, uh, being the number 2 pound for pound in the world, uh, and all the other champions that I have. So, without a doubt, because Andre is my godson, because we started him at 9 years old. My chest is really out there for his accomplishments, and it's safe to say it's only going to be one Andre Ward. I don't think I'll never have another one
Well, let me ask you this:
like him.
how did you know at 9 that he had the grit?
Mhm.
How did how did you? What did you see in him that made you say this is the track?
Mm.
This is a
Well,
potential champion.
well, you can't predict a champion at 9 years old. What you can do is say that if you're going to be a champion, he's taken all the right steps and all the right procedures. He had uncommon dedication. He had desire, and he had maturity at 9 years old. In other, he knew what he wanted to do, and he knew where he wanted to go. I started predicting greatness for him when he was 15. Uh, Although I predicted some of his accomplishments that he achieved long before that, because he just exhibited something that very few kids can exhibit, and that's what made him special. That's why I said I'll never have another one like him.
Well, he's from Oakland too, isn't that right?
He was born in San Francisco. He was raised in Hayward in Oakland.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, for us in Oakland, he's going to
Yes.
always be number one pound for
Correct.
pound.
Correct.
Have we had any other champions out of Oakland going back over the years,
Uh,
even back to the 50s and 60s?
World champions, the closest I would have to say would be James Page. He was from Pittsburgh, but more or less he lived in Oakland for a period of time. But not in George Foreman, of course. He
George
moved out
Foreman.
here from Texas when he was
Mhm.
16.
He
So
went to Chabot, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he lived in Hayward,
Mhm.
and so you could say that his career started here, and he was a champion still living here. So you can say the Bay Area produced George Foreman also. So, but we had a lot of great fighters in the 50s: George Cooper, Charlie Shipes, Ralph McCoy,
Charlie
Nate
Shipes.
Collins, uh, Maurice Harper, people like that. But they never got their opportunities due to the political arena in boxing.
I see.
What advice would you offer to young individuals who want to be uh, boxing trainers or boxing managers or anything related to boxing
Well,
other than the boxing?
mhm. If you are going to train kids how to box, first you have to understand that it's a very, very dangerous sport, and that you should be qualified. It's not something that you can go read a book, look at a tape, sit around on the couch and discuss uh, with your friends because you watch fights all the time, or you attend fights, or you're a big boxing
So you
fan.
can't be an armchair boxing
No,
coach.
that you're going to take this and put it into actually starting to work with a young man. You really have to know how to develop a young man from the very beginning, because it's a very dangerous sport. You can die in a boxing ring. So you should have the qualifications. You should have the background. I respected the sport. I served an apprenticeship under trainers before I even had one fighter of my own. And that was a requirement in those days. Now, a guy can go and apply $50, get a boxing license, and he can start a kid out and actually put him in amateur fights and get him going from there. It doesn't call for any background check or any qualification check, anything. And you see that uh, effect of it in the tournaments. You see the effect of that in show fights, where you're seeing these kids being taught by somebody that maybe they shouldn't be taught by. And here's a kid at 11 years old, 10 years old, and literally get knocked out because they're not being taught right. It discourages them from the sport. They have one fight, they take a shellac, and then they leave. So you want people that's going to teach the sport, where you're going to keep the kids interested, keep them coming, but you know exactly what you're talking about, because their health and welfare and well-being is in your hand.
So if anybody thinks they have the wherewithal to become a boxer, and they're in this Bay Area, what would you tell them?
If they aspire to be a boxer,
Aspire to be a boxer, and they think
uh-huh.
they have what it takes.
Well, they should find a good gym. They should do their homework and research and find the right gym to attend first. They should take their time to identify a coach. They should know what this coach's credentials are. They should know what his success is. They should know the success of fighters that have been in his hand. It's almost like anything else that you do for purchasing a home or a car. You want to know the background and the history of who you're getting ready to enlist yourself to. So I would suggest that they take their time and not be brought in by what I call floor gimmick talk, where I can show you how to be a world champion right here by telling you to do this and do and demonstrate. Everything is easy when it's coming from your end, but nothing is coming back at you. So you have to be able to identify the right coach. And I would tell any young kid and any parent that has a kid that wants to box, make sure you do your homework about the coach that you're getting ready to put your kids into this coach's hand, because you can get your kid hurt.
And how many people, youngsters, young men, like, I guess, teen age and under, who actually are hurt doing this amateur boxing?
Hurt in what respect?
Like knocked out, or maybe, I guess they receive some sort of concussion too, because this is, people get hit in the head a lot, right?
Well, concussions usually come from a knockout blow. Concussions usually come from a sustained one-sided beating. In amateur boxing, it's very rare because of the headgear and the size of the gloves, and then the referee and the rules and things are designed to protect the fighter. Professional boxing, you have to protect yourself at all times. So in amateurs, it's low. But believe it or not, most of the damage in boxing is done in the gym, where you have inexperienced coaches working with the kids and have them sparring and things like that, overmatching them in sparring and trying to have them do things that are not realistic and in line with their talent level at the moment. So that's where most of the damage starts, in the gym.
Do you have a public gym where you invite people in to train them, teach them, they pay you for your services?
My gym is private because I have all professional fighters and high-end amateur fighters, so it's not open to the public. However, we do offer personal training. In the sense that if a person wants to train like a fighter and does everything a fighter does with the exception of competition, we do offer those services.
And do you make some number available for those people who want to get private lessons in boxing?
Well, usually I let them find me.
And just they get a call and run look for you.
That's right.
That's right. If you want some good assistance, you got to go look for it.
Well, Virgil, we want to thank you.
Thank you for having
coming on
me.
our show. I'm sure this interview with you is going to be greatly appreciated. I certainly appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And
thank you, Virgil.
Thank you, Council.
And thank you, viewers. Until next week.